Park Hyun walked through the quiet hallway of the station's biology wing. Her footsteps echoed off the metal walls as she checked her tablet one more time. The corridor should have been empty at this hour. Most of the alien delegations were attending the cultural ceremony in the main hall, and she had specifically requested this time to collect her research samples without interruption. She had been working on the Galactic Frontier Station for 8 months now. As a xenobiologist, her job was to study the different alien species that came through the station and help humans understand their basic needs. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was important. Every scan, every sample, every observation helped humanity fit into the larger galactic community. The station orbited at the edge of known space, a massive wheel spinning slowly to create artificial gravity. 50,000 beings from dozens of species lived and worked here. Some were friendly to humans. Others were not. The Vexthar fell into the second category. Hyun had seen them from a distance. They were impossible to miss. Standing 8 feet tall with dark scales covering their bodies, they moved like predators. Every step was calculated. Every glance felt like an assessment of whether you were prey or competitor. Their ambassador, Thelkor, had made it clear that humans should keep their distance from the Vexthar cultural quarters. But Hyun needed those samples. She had left 3 containers in the environmental testing chamber 2 days ago, and the data they contained was crucial for her report. The chamber was technically near the Vexthar quarters, but it wasn't inside them. She would be quick. She pressed her hand to the scanner. The door slid open with a soft hiss. The environmental chamber was small, filled with equipment that monitored air quality, temperature, and biological contamination. Her containers sat exactly where she had left them, their blue lights blinking steadily. Hyun grabbed the first container and checked its readings. Perfect. The bacteria samples had grown exactly as predicted. She reached for the second container when she felt something, a tickling sensation on her back, then a slight pressure, then tiny claws digging through the fabric of her uniform. Hyun froze. Her heart hammered in her chest. Whatever was on her back was small but definitely alive. The claws weren't breaking skin, but they were sharp enough that she could feel each individual point pressing against her. She heard a small chirping sound, high-pitched and almost curious. Moving very slowly, Hyun turned her head. From the corner of her eye, she could see a small shape clinging to her shoulder. Scales. Dark green scales that shimmered under the lab lights. A Vexthar juvenile. The creature was no bigger than a house cat, with oversized feet that gripped her uniform tightly. Its head was triangular, with large yellow eyes that blinked at her. The juvenile chirped again, tilting its head as if examining her. Hyun's mind raced. How did it get here? Where were its parents? Vexthar were fiercely protective of their young. If they thought she had taken their offspring, they would tear the station apart. She needed to put it down and get security. But when she tried to reach back and gently remove the creature, it chirped louder and climbed higher, wrapping its small arms around her neck. The claws dug in slightly, not enough to hurt, but enough to make it clear the juvenile wasn't letting go. The alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed along the corridor. The station's automated voice announced a security lockdown. All personnel were to remain in their current locations. Hyun's tablet buzzed with incoming messages. The first was from Kim Dae, the security officer on duty. Hyun, where are you? There's a situation with the Vexthar delegation. One of their juveniles is missing. Her blood turned cold. The second message was from Choi Minji, the head diplomat. Emergency protocol. Nobody approaches the Vexthar quarters. They believe someone has stolen their child. Hyun looked down at her tablet, then back at the small creature clinging to her. The juvenile's eyes were fixed on her face, and it made a softer chirping sound, almost content. This was very, very bad. Before she could decide what to do, the door to the environmental chamber burst open. Kim Dae stood in the doorway, weapon drawn but lowered. He was young for a security officer, only 28, but he had good instincts. His eyes went wide when he saw the juvenile on Hyun's back. Don't move, he said quietly. 2 more security officers appeared behind him. I'm not moving, Hyun whispered. It climbed on me. I didn't touch it. Can you shake it off? I tried. It won't let go. Kim Dae tapped his communicator. I found Dr. Park. She has the juvenile. It's attached to her. I need medical and diplomatic support immediately. The juvenile chirped at Kim Dae and pressed closer to Hyun's back. She could feel its rapid heartbeat through her uniform. Yoon Ji-won arrived within minutes carrying her medical scanner. She was the station's chief medical officer, and Hyun had worked with her on several cross-species health projects. Ji-won's face was calm, but Hyun could see the tension in her shoulders. "I'm going to scan it," Ji-won said. "Don't move." The scanner hummed as Ji-won ran it over the juvenile. Her expression changed from concern to confusion to something that looked like worry. "What is it?" Hyun asked. "The juvenile has already started a biochemical bonding process," Ji-won said slowly. "It's releasing pheromones that indicate it's imprinted on you." "What does that mean?" "I don't know. I've never seen this in Vexthar before, but based on similar processes in other species, it means the juvenile thinks you're its parent." Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Hyun knew what that sound meant. Vexthar moved with weight and purpose. She turned slowly, careful not to jostle the juvenile on her back. Ambassador Thelkor filled the doorway. His scales were darker than the juvenile's, almost black, and his yellow eyes glowed with barely contained rage. Two other Vexthar flanked him, both in combat posture. Their claws were extended and their tails lashed behind them. Kim Dae and his officers immediately moved between Hyun and the Vexthar, but it felt like a useless gesture. If Thelkor wanted to attack, the human security team wouldn't slow him down much. Choi Minji pushed past the security officers. She was smaller than everyone else present, but she carried herself with authority. At 45, she had negotiated peace between species that had been at war for centuries. This situation was just another problem to solve. "Ambassador Thelkor," she said calmly, "there has been a misunderstanding. Your human has taken Kresh," Thelkor growled. His voice was deep, resonating in Hyun's chest. "Return my offspring now." "I didn't take anyone," Hyun said quickly. "It climbed onto me. I was just collecting samples." Thelkor's eyes focused on her. She had never felt so thoroughly examined in her life. The Vexthar ambassador looked at her the way a scientist might look at an interesting bacteria sample. Then his gaze shifted to the juvenile on her back. He spoke in his own language, a series of clicks and growls. The juvenile responded with its chirping sound. Thelkor's expression changed. The rage dimmed, replaced by something Hyun couldn't identify. "Kresh has bonded with you," he said finally. "This is not possible. Can you explain what that means?" Choi Minji asked. "Vexthar juveniles bond with their guardians through scent and biochemistry," Thelkor said. "They choose the being they perceive as strong enough to protect them. Once bonded, they cannot survive without their guardian. The bond is absolute. So take it back," Kim Dae said. "You're its parent. I am its sire," Thelkor corrected. "But Kresh has chosen this human. If the bond is real, separating them will kill my offspring within days." The corridor fell silent except for the juvenile's soft breathing. Hyun felt the tiny claws grip tighter on her back. The juvenile, Kresh, made a small sound that might have been contentment. She looked at Ji-won, who nodded slowly. "The scan confirms it. The bonding has already begun." "Then we have a problem," Thelkor said, "because no alien has ever successfully raised a Vexthar juvenile to maturity. Your species lacks the necessary aggression. Kresh will die and my family will be shamed." Hyun swallowed hard. She could feel everyone's eyes on her. The small creature on her back chirped again and she realized something terrifying. She didn't want it to die. "What if I try?" she heard herself say. Thelkor's laugh was harsh. "Then you will fail, human, and we will all watch my offspring slowly waste away." The meeting room was crowded. Hyun sat in the center with Kresh still clinging to her back. The juvenile had not let go in 3 hours. Every time someone suggested removing it by force, Kresh would dig its claws in deeper and make distressed sounds that hurt Hyun's ears. Ambassador Thelkor sat across from her with 2 other Vexthar. One was introduced as Velna, Kresh's birth mother. She was slightly smaller than Thelkor, but somehow more intimidating. Her yellow eyes never left her offspring. The other Vexthar was Telrin, some kind of cultural advisor. Choi Minji sat at the head of the table with Kim Dae standing behind her. Yoon Ji-won was reviewing her medical scans on a tablet, occasionally glancing up at Kresh with professional curiosity. "Explain the bonding process again," Choi Minji said. "I want to make sure I understand completely." Telrin leaned forward. When he spoke, his voice had a teacher's patience. "Vexthar juveniles hatch in clutches of 3 to 5. For the first month, they remain in the nest with their birth parents. Then comes the wandering period. The juveniles leave the nest and search for their true guardian. True guardian? Hyun asked. The weight of Kresh on her back was starting to make her shoulders ache. The one who will teach them to hunt and survive, Velna said. Her voice was softer than Thelkor's but carried the same depth. Sometimes they choose their birth parents. Sometimes they choose another family member. The bond is not about blood. It is about strength. And Kresh chose me. Hyun said quietly. Yes, Thelkor confirmed. Though we do not understand why. Kresh wandered from our quarters during the ceremony. We thought it would choose one of our delegation. Instead, it found you. What happens if I refuse the bond? Hyun had to ask, even though she suspected she already knew the answer. Kresh will die, Velna said flatly. Once a juvenile bonds, its body begins producing hormones that depend on the guardian's scent. Without those hormones, the juvenile cannot digest food. It will starve within 5 to 7 days. Hyun felt sick. She looked at Kim Dae, who gave her a small nod of support. Has an alien ever bonded with a Vexthar juvenile before? Choi Minji asked. 3 times in our recorded history, Telrin said. A Quilon diplomat 200 years ago, a Hren trader 70 years ago, and a Tilvar scientist 40 years ago. What happened to them? They all failed. The juveniles died. The Quilon lasted 12 days. The Hren lasted 8. The Tilvar lasted 19, the longest recorded attempt. Why did they fail? Hyun asked. Velna's tail moved in what might have been a shrug. They were not aggressive enough. Vexithar juveniles test their guardians constantly. They attack, they challenge, they push boundaries. If the guardian cannot dominate them, the juvenile loses respect. Without respect, the bond breaks. The juvenile refuses to eat and dies. So I have to fight a baby predator? Hyun said. You have to prove you are stronger, Thelkor corrected. Every day, until Kresh reaches maturity at 6 months. 6 months. Hyun tried to imagine fighting this creature every day for 6 months while it grew larger and more dangerous. Yoon Jiwon cleared her throat. I've been analyzing Dr. Park's biochemistry and comparing it to the readings from Kresh. I found something interesting. Everyone turned to look at her. Human stress hormones and adrenaline have a similar chemical structure to Vexthar guardian pheromones, Jiwon said. Not identical, but close enough that Kresh's body might accept them as substitute markers. What does that mean in simple terms? Choi Minji asked. It means when Dr. Park feels threatened or protective, her body produces chemicals that Kresh recognizes as guardian signals. That's probably why Kresh bonded with her in the first place. The juvenile sensed those chemicals and interpreted them as strength. Thelkor made a sound that might have been surprise. Humans produce these chemicals naturally? When we're stressed or in danger, yes, Jiwon confirmed. Fascinating, Telrin said. Most species suppress such reactions in civilized settings. Your kind does not. We try to, Hyun said. But it's hardwired into us. Part of our evolution. Velna studied Hyun with new interest. Perhaps that is why Kresh chose you. Your species carries its predator instincts close to the surface. Kim Dae made a sound that might have been amusement. Choi Minji shot him a warning look. So Dr. Park has the right chemistry, Choi Minji said. But does she have the right temperament? No offense, Hyun, but you're a scientist, not a warrior. None taken, Hyun said. I'm asking myself the same question. Kresh shifted on her back, making small chirping sounds. One tiny claw poked through her uniform and touched her skin. It wasn't painful, just present. A reminder that the juvenile was there and completely dependent on her. I want to try, Hyun said suddenly. I don't know if I can do it, but I want to try. Thelkor and Velna exchanged a long look. Some silent communication passed between them. If you fail, Kresh dies, Thelkor said. That shame will fall on our family. But if you succeed, you will be the first alien to raise one of our young. That honor would be significant. I understand, Hyun said. You will need training, Velna added. I will teach you our ways. How to feed Kresh, how to establish dominance, how to read the signs of respect and challenge. And you'll need protection, Kim Dae said. Permission to be assigned as Dr. Park's security detail? Choi Minji considered this. Granted. But Hyun, you need to understand the political implications. Other species are watching how we handle this. Some will see it as proof that humans are dangerous. Others will see it as an opportunity. What kind of opportunity? Hyun asked. The kind that makes people nervous, Choi Minji said carefully. If a human can bond with a Vexthar, what else can humans do? What other boundaries can we cross? Hyun hadn't thought about it that way. She was just trying to save a small creature that had chosen her. But in the galactic community, everything was political. There are others who will not want you to succeed, Telrin warned. The Kiltar merchants have been trying to establish trade relations with our people for decades. We have refused because we do not trust them. If humans and Vexthar form bonds, it threatens their position. Will they try to hurt Kresh? Hyun felt a surge of protective anger at the thought. Thelkor's eyes gleamed. You see, already you think like a guardian. That anger will serve you well. We'll increase security around Dr. Park's quarters, Kim Dae said, and I'll run background checks on anyone who comes near her. When do we start? Hyun asked. Now, Velna said, rising from her seat. Come, I will show you how to feed Kresh. It will not be pleasant for either of you. Hyun stood carefully, aware of the juvenile's weight on her back. As she followed Velna out of the meeting room, she felt Kresh's claws grip tighter, as if the juvenile sensed they were going somewhere important. The feeding chamber was in the Vexthar quarters. It was warm and dimly lit, designed to mimic their homeworld's environment. Velna brought out a container of what looked like raw meat chunks. Kresh is old enough to eat solid food, Velna explained, but it will not accept food from anyone but its guardian. You must hand feed it, and you must not show weakness when it bites you. When it bites me? Hyun repeated. Not if. When. Juveniles always test their guardians during feeding. Kresh will bite your hand. You must not pull away. You must not cry out. If you do, Kresh will lose respect for you. Hyun looked at the meat, then at Kresh, who was watching the container with intense interest. How hard do they bite? Hard enough to break skin, Velna said, but not hard enough to cause permanent damage, usually. Kim Dae, who had followed them, put his hand on Hyun's shoulder. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Hyun said. She thought about the Tilvar scientist who had lasted 19 days. She thought about Kresh dying slowly from starvation. She thought about how the tiny claws had felt on her back, scared and seeking protection. She reached into the container and pulled out a piece of meat. Kresh chirped excitedly and climbed around to her front, perching on her arm. The juvenile opened its mouth, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. Hyun held out the meat. Kresh snatched it and bit down. Hard. Its teeth sank into the soft flesh between Hyun's thumb and forefinger. Pain shot through her hand. Every instinct screamed at her to pull away. But she didn't. She locked eyes with Kresh and didn't move, didn't cry out, didn't even flinch. Blood dripped from her hand. Kresh held the bite for 3 seconds. Then it released and swallowed the meat, chirping happily. Velna made a sound of approval. Good. You passed the first test. Hyun's hand throbbed. Kim Dae was already reaching for medical supplies, but Velna stopped him. Let it bleed for a moment, she said. Kresh needs to smell it. Needs to know its guardian can endure pain. Kresh looked up at Hyun and chirped again. This time the sound was different, softer, almost affectionate. Hyun smiled through the pain. We're going to figure this out, she whispered to the juvenile. Both of us. 3 weeks had passed since Kresh bonded with Hyun. Her quarters had been modified with reinforced walls and heated floors to accommodate the growing juvenile. Kresh was now the size of a large dog and showed no signs of slowing down. Hyun sat on the floor of her quarters, watching Kresh tear apart a practice dummy. The juvenile had gotten stronger and more aggressive with each passing day. Its scales had darkened to a deep forest green, and its claws left scratches on the metal floor. You're getting better at this, Kim Dae said from the doorway. He visited every morning to help with training. Better at what? Getting bitten? Hyun showed him her bandaged forearm. Kresh decided my arm looked tastier than breakfast. But you didn't back down, Kim Dae pointed out. 2 weeks ago you would have pulled away. Now you stand your ground, he was right. Hyun had learned to read Kresh's body language. The tail position that meant playful attack versus serious challenge. The eye color shift from yellow to orange when the juvenile was testing her. The chirping sounds that meant hunger versus boredom versus contentment. Yoon Ji-won had been monitoring both of them daily. She said Hyun's stress hormone levels had actually stabilized. Her body was adapting to the constant low-level threat that came with living with a predator. Velna wants to see you this afternoon, Kim Dae said. Something about advanced training, Hyun groaned. Advanced training usually meant more pain. But she trusted Velna. The Vexthar female had been patient and thorough in teaching her their ways. More importantly, Velna seemed genuinely invested in Kresh's survival. Kresh finished destroying the dummy and trotted over to Hyun, rubbing its head against her leg. The juvenile was affectionate when it wasn't being aggressive. These moments of softness made all the bites and scratches worth it. Good hunt, Hyun murmured, scratching behind Kresh's ear ridge. The juvenile made a purring sound deep in its throat. Kim Dae's communicator buzzed. His expression changed as he read the message. We have a problem. Someone tried to access the environmental controls in your quarters last night. They wanted to increase the temperature to dangerous levels. Who? Hyun felt that protective anger surge again. Still investigating, but the access code traces back to someone with Kiltar connections. The Kiltar. Telrin had warned her about them. They were merchants and traders always looking for advantage. If Hyun failed to raise Kresh, it would damage human-Vexthar relations and give the Kiltar an opening. How close did they get? Hyun asked. The system rejected the code change, but it was a sophisticated attempt. Whoever did it knew what they were doing. Kresh sensed Hyun's tension and pressed closer, making a protective growling sound. The juvenile might still be young, but its instincts were sharp. I'll have security review all access logs, Kim Dae said. And I'm doubling the guards outside your quarters. Hyun nodded, but her mind was already spinning. Someone wanted Kresh dead, wanted her to fail. The thought made her furious in a way she had never experienced before. This wasn't intellectual anger or moral outrage. This was primal protective rage. She noticed Kim Dae watching her carefully. What? She asked. Your eyes, he said. They look different when you're angry now. More intense. Hyun touched her face. She had noticed changes in herself over the past weeks. She moved differently, more alert. She reacted faster. She even ate differently, preferring protein and avoiding foods that made her sluggish. She was adapting to be a better guardian. That afternoon, Velna led Hyun and Kresh to a training room deep in the Vexthar quarters. Ambassador Thelkor was there, along with Telrin and 2 other Vexthar juveniles with their guardians. Today you learn combat bonding, Velna announced. Kresh is strong enough now to fight beside you. You must teach it to coordinate attacks and trust your judgment. How do we do that? Hyun asked. By fighting together, Thelkor said. He gestured to a section of the room where a holographic training program was loading. The simulation will create opponents. You and Kresh must work together to defeat them. The other guardians and juveniles watched with interest. Hyun recognized the body language now. They were curious but skeptical. No alien had ever gotten this far, but they still expected her to fail. The simulation activated. A holographic creature appeared, something like a wolf but with 6 legs and crystalline spikes along its back. It snarled and charged at Hyun. Kresh immediately leaped forward, putting itself between Hyun and the hologram. The juvenile's claws passed through the projection, but sensors recorded the strike. No, Velna said sharply. Kresh protects too much. You must teach it that you are also a fighter. Hyun understood. She couldn't let Kresh take all the risk. That wasn't partnership. That was the juvenile protecting a weak guardian. The hologram reset. This time when it charged, Hyun didn't hesitate. She dove to the side and rolled, coming up near the creature's flank. Kresh, seeing her move, attacked from the front. Together they surrounded the hologram. Better, Thelkor rumbled. They ran the simulation 15 times. Hyun's muscles burned and her lungs ached, but she kept going. Kresh was tireless, attacking with enthusiasm. By the 10th run, they had developed a rhythm. Hyun would draw the hologram's attention, and Kresh would strike from behind. Or Kresh would engage while Hyun looked for weak points. After the 15th run, Velna called a halt. Enough! You learned quickly, human! Hyun collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. Kresh curled up beside her, also exhausted but content. The bond grows strong, Telrin observed. I did not think it possible. Neither did I, Thelkor admitted. He approached Hyun, towering over her. You honor my offspring with your dedication. Few of our own people try this hard. Kresh is worth it, Hyun said simply. That evening, Kim Dae brought news. We found the person who tried to sabotage your quarters. A maintenance worker with gambling debts. The Chiltar paid him to cause an accident. What happens to him? Hyun asked. Station security is handling it. But the Chiltar are claiming ignorance. They say the worker acted alone. Do you believe that? No, Kim Dae said. And neither does Ambassador Thelkor. He's filed a formal complaint with the station council. Choi Minji had stopped by earlier to discuss the political ramifications. The attempted sabotage had actually helped human-Vexthar relations. It gave them a common enemy and a reason to cooperate more closely. Security footage shows 2 Chiltar merchants watching your quarters yesterday, Kim Dae continued. They were taking notes on your schedule. They're planning something else, Hyun said. Probably. But now we're watching them too. Kresh stirred from its nap and padded over to Hyun's small kitchen area. The juvenile had learned to open the cold storage unit and was helping itself to a chunk of meat. At least it's feeding itself now, Hyun said. That's progress. Velna says it's ahead of schedule on development, Kim Dae replied. Most juveniles this age still need hand feeding. Hyun felt a surge of pride. Kresh was thriving, growing stronger and smarter every day. The bond between them had deepened into something she couldn't fully explain. When Kresh was happy, she felt lighter. When Kresh was agitated, she felt restless. They were connected in ways that went beyond chemistry and biology. A soft chime indicated someone at her door. Kim Dae checked the security feed and nodded. It's Yoon Ji-won. The medical officer entered carrying her scanning equipment and a tablet. Evening checkup time, she said cheerfully. How are you both feeling? Tired, Hyun admitted, but good. Ji-won ran her scans, humming softly. Kresh tolerated the examination, though it kept one eye on the Medica. Your hormone levels are remarkable, Ji-won said, studying her tablet. Your body has essentially rewired itself to maintain the guardian pheromones constantly. And Kresh's growth rate is 30% faster than normal Vexthar juveniles. Is that bad? Hyun asked. No, it's incredible. It suggests the human-Vexthar bond might actually be more efficient than Vexthar-Vexthar bonds. I've been sharing my research with the xenobiology community. You two are famous now. Hyun wasn't sure how she felt about that. She hadn't set out to be famous. She had just wanted to save a small creature that trusted her. Kim Dae's communicator buzzed to read the message, and his expression darkened. The Chiltar have requested a formal meeting with the station council. They're claiming humans are attempting to weaponize Vexthar juveniles for military purposes. That's insane, Hyun said. It's also clever, Kim Dae replied. If they can make other species afraid of what you're doing, they create political pressure to stop the bonding program. There's a bonding program now? Hyun asked. Ji-won nodded. Choi Minji approved it yesterday. 3 other humans have volunteered to attempt bondingenials. They're waiting to see if you succeed with Kresh first. The weight of that responsibility settled on Hyun's shoulders. It wasn't just about Kresh anymore. It was about opening a door for her entire species. Kresh finished eating and returned to Hyun, climbing into her lap despite now being far too large for it. The juvenile's weight was comforting, solid and real. We'll deal with the Chiltar, Hyun said quietly. Right now I need to focus on Kresh. But even as she said it, she knew the challenges were only beginning. The Chiltar wouldn't give up easily, and there were still 3 months until Kresh reached maturity. 3 months of tests and challenges and people waiting for her to fail. She looked at Kim Dae. Teach me simulations. Kim Dae raised an eyebrow. 12 weeks had passed. Kresh now stood nearly 5 feet tall at the shoulder, with scales that had darkened to deep emerald. The juvenile moved with a predator's grace, all coiled muscle and controlled power. But when Kresh looked at Hyun, those fierce yellow eyes softened with unmistakable affection. Hyun had changed too. Her body was leaner, stronger. The soft scientist who had accidentally bonded with an alien predator was gone. In her place stood someone who moved with confidence, who could read threats before they materialized, who could stare down a charging hologram without flinching. Kim Dae had been training her in combat 3 times a week. Not fancy martial arts, but practical fighting. How to use her smaller size as an advantage. How to read an opponent's balance. How to strike fast and retreat faster. Hyun would never be as strong as a Vexthar, but she was learning to be smart and quick. Tomorrow is the first hunt, Velna said. She sat in Hyun's quarters watching Kresh play fight with a reinforced dummy. Are you prepared? Hyun's stomach tightened. The first hunt. She had known it was coming, but somehow the reality of it felt heavier than expected. Tell me again what happens, Hyun said. Kresh must prove it can hunt and kill, Velna explained patiently. We will release a Skalthar into a controlled environment. You and Kresh must track it, corner it, and bring it down together. And if we fail, Kresh will be declared unviable. It will be exiled from Vexthar society. It will survive physically, but it will never be accepted by our people. Hyun watched Kresh slam into the dummy with enough force to dent the reinforced material. The juvenile had gotten so strong. But was it strong enough? Was she strong enough? What's a Skalthar? Hyun asked, though she suspected she didn't want to know the answer. A predator from our home world, roughly the size of your earth bear but faster and more aggressive. Armored hide, powerful jaws, intelligent enough to set traps. You're putting us in a cage with an alien bear, Hyun said flatly. It is tradition, Velna replied. Every Vexthar juvenile must complete the first hunt. Some die. Most succeed. It is how we prove ourselves worthy. Kresh trotted over and pressed its head against Hyun's hand. The juvenile could sense her anxiety. In the past 3 months, their bond had deepened to the point where they could read each other's moods almost instantly. We'll be ready, Hyun said, more to convince herself than Velna. That night, Hyun couldn't sleep. She lay in bed with Kresh curled on the floor beside her, and thought about all the ways tomorrow could go wrong. The Skalthar could be faster than them, stronger, smarter. One wrong move and Kresh could be seriously injured. Or she could be. Or both of them. Her communicator chimed softly. A message from Kim Dae. Can't sleep either? Hyun smiled and typed back. Thinking about alien bears. Want company? Yes. Kim Dae arrived 10 minutes later with 2 containers of hot tea. They sat on the floor with Kresh between them, the juvenile's steady breathing a comforting rhythm. Choi Minji told me the entire Vexthar delegation will be watching tomorrow, Kim Dae said, plus representatives from a dozen other species. This has become a major event. No pressure then, Hyun said dryly. You've got this. You and Kresh work together better than any team I've ever seen. We've never fought something that can actually kill us. Yes, you have, Kim Dae said quietly. You've been fighting skepticism and sabotage and political pressure for 3 months. This is just a different kind of predator. Hyun appreciated his confidence even if she didn't entirely share it. The morning came too quickly. Hyun dressed in reinforced clothing that Velna had provided. It was made from Vexthar materials, flexible but tough enough to stop claws. Kresh wore nothing. Juveniles hunted without protection, relying on speed and natural armor. The hunt would take place in Cargo Bay 7, which had been converted into a simulation of a Vexthar forest. Artificial trees, real dirt, strategic shadows. The Skalthar had been released an hour ago to give it time to establish territory. Hyun and Kresh stood at the entrance while Velna went over final instructions. Remember, the Skalthar will try to separate you. It knows juveniles are more vulnerable alone. Stay together. Use your bond. Ambassador Thelkor approached, his massive frame blocking out the light. Human, he said formally. You have exceeded all expectations. Kresh is strong and healthy because of you. Whatever happens today, know that you have brought honor to both our species. Hyun bowed, a gesture of respect she had learned. Thank you, Ambassador. The cargo bay doors opened. The audience chamber above was filled with observers. Hyun could see Choi Minji and Yoon Jiwon. Several Kiltar merchants stood in the back, their expressions hard to read. Hyun and Kresh entered together. The artificial forest was dim, lit by filtered light meant to simulate the Vexthar homeworld's red sun. The air was warm and smelled of earth and vegetation. Somewhere in this constructed wilderness, a Skalthar waited. Kresh's entire body went alert. The juvenile's claws extended, scraping softly against the dirt. Its nostrils flared, testing the air. Hyun forced herself to breathe slowly. Her heart hammered, but she couldn't let fear control her. She was a guardian. She was a hunter. She was Kresh's partner. They moved deeper into the forest. Kresh slightly ahead, Hyun watching their flanks. The juvenile was tracking something. Hyun had learned to trust Kresh's senses. They were far superior to her own. A sound to the left. Breaking branches. Kresh spun toward it, growling low. Hyun saw it then. The Skalthar, it was massive, easily 8 feet long with thick plated hide that looked like natural armor. Its head was broad and flat with a mouth full of crushing teeth. 6 legs meant it was incredibly stable and could turn quickly. Small eyes glinted with predatory intelligence. The Skalthar charged. Kresh met the charge head-on, claws raking across the creature's armored face. But the Skalthar was older, more experienced. It twisted and slammed its body into Kresh, sending the juvenile tumbling. Hyun didn't think. She ran forward and slammed her fist into the Skalthar's eye. The creature roared and swung its head toward her. She rolled under the strike and came up behind it. Kresh recovered and attacked from the other side. The Skalthar was now between them, forced to divide its attention. This was what they had trained for. This was partnership. The Skalthar lunged at Hyun. She dodged, but not quite fast enough. A claw caught her leg, tearing through the reinforced clothing and drawing blood. Pain shot through her, but she didn't cry out. Couldn't show weakness, not here, not now. Kresh saw the blood and something changed in the juvenile. The playful creature Hyun knew vanished. In its place stood a predator whose guardian had been hurt. Kresh attacked with a fury Hyun had never seen before. The juvenile moved like lightning, striking and retreating, wearing down the larger creature. Every time the Skalthar tried to focus on Hyun, Kresh would tear at its flanks. Every time it turned to face Kresh, Hyun would strike at its legs or face. They were working in perfect synchronization. Hyun would feint left, Kresh would strike right. The Skalthar was powerful, but it was confused. It had expected to fight one enemy, not a bonded pair that moved as a single unit. Minutes passed like hours. Hyun's leg throbbed and her lungs burned, but she kept moving. Kresh was bleeding from several wounds, but showed no signs of slowing. The Skalthar made a mistake. It committed too hard to an attack on Kresh, leaving its throat exposed. Hyun saw the opening and shouted. Kresh understood instantly. The juvenile leaped and caught the Skalthar by the throat, claws digging deep. Hyun threw herself at the creature's front leg, pulling it off balance. The Skalthar toppled and Kresh rode it down, jaws locked on its throat. The creature thrashed once, twice, then went still. Silence filled the cargo bay. Then the observation chamber erupted in sound. Some species were cheering. Others were making sounds of shock or dismay. Hyun collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. Kresh released the Skalthar and limped over to her, pressing its bloodied head against her chest. The juvenile was purring, a deep rumbling sound of contentment and relief. We did it, Hyun whispered. We actually did it. The cargo bay doors opened. Velna rushed in, followed by Yoon Ji-won with medical equipment. Kim Dae was right behind them, his face showing relief and pride. But it was Ambassador Thelkor who reached them first. The massive Vexthar knelt in the dirt and placed one clawed hand on Kresh's head and the other on Hyun's shoulder. Kresh Guardian, he said formally, using the Vexthar title for a successful hunt leader. You have proven yourself beyond doubt. Kresh is viable. The bond is complete. The other Vexthar delegation members approached, each one touching Kresh and Hyun in turn. It was some kind of recognition ceremony, Hyun realized. An acceptance. First alien to complete the first hunt in our recorded history, Telrin announced loudly enough for the observers to hear. Park Hyun of Earth is recognized as a true Vexthar guardian. The cheering from the human section of the observation chamber was deafening. Yoon Ji-won was examining Hyun's leg. This needs stitches, but you'll be fine. And Kresh's wounds are superficial. You both got lucky. It wasn't luck, Kim Dae said quietly. It was skill. Choi Minji appeared, her face showing rare emotion. Do you know what you've just done? Do you understand the implications? I saved Kresh, Hyun said simply. You did more than that. You proved humans can bond with one of the galaxy's most feared predator species. You've changed everything. Hyun looked down at Kresh, who was leaning heavily against her, exhausted but happy. The juvenile's yellow eyes blinked slowly, trusting and content. I didn't do it for politics, Hyun said. I did it because Kresh chose me and I couldn't let it die. I know, Choi Minji replied. That's exactly why it worked. In the observation chamber, the Kiltar merchants were leaving quickly, their expressions dark. They had wanted her to fail, wanted proof that humans were weak. Instead, they had watched her succeed in a way no alien ever had before. Hyun felt Kresh's weight against her and knew that everything had changed. The tiny claws she had felt on her back 3 months ago had led her here, to this moment, to this bond, to this new future for both their species.